we are very hopeful about today being a good day for us. And today the lesson is on Christ and the ungodly. Hopefully it'll be a good one for someone not be seeking the truth. They good. We'll find out. But this morning I want to continue on in the book of Ephesians. And last week we got to verse number 2. And verse 1 and 2 is dealing with imitation of Jesus, being imitators of God as dear children. Child of his parents, so we imitate God. And then we look at Jesus for the example, how he also loved us and has given himself for us as an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet smelling aroma. All of that is dealing with the plan of redemption, dealing with sacrifice, dealing with, of course, Jesus as the Passover lamb, looking forward and back to the cross, and all those good things. And now, verse 3 pops in, and verse 3 seems to break up what's happening in verses 1 and 2. 1 and 2 is all good and happy things, and 3 says about fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness. Let it not even be named among you, even as is fitting for saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolishness, nor foolish talking, nor coarse jesting, which are not fitting, but rather giving of thanks. For this you know that no fornicator, no unclean person, nor covetous man, who is an idolater, has any inheritance in the kingdom of God, or of the kingdom of Christ and God. And no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. Therefore, do not be partakers with them. Verse 7. Okay, so verse 1 and 2, imitation. So you ought to be who Christ is. And then he goes off into kind of a spiral. How does that happen? How does the verses 3 through 7 go against 1 and 2? Why would he do that?
Well, he's contrasting character.
Okay.
The first one is okay, you look at it. Therefore, we imitate God as beloved children. And then there he said, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us, a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God. And then in verse 2, he used that what you call it now, but sexual immorality and impurity of covenant must not be even named among you as is proper among the saints. In other words, what he's contrasting is the fact we as individuals, and because we are by nature influenced to be drawn to all of these different things down here, sexual immorality, covetousness, foolish talk, not true joking, all of that, and sexual immorality or foolish covetous, all that, we are challenged with that. Mm-hmm. And what we have to understand is, even as we progress through life, we have to mature past a lot of those things.
Yeah.
How they influence our own inner character and how we do things. Mm-hmm. And so what we have to understand is see what he's doing is letting us know from the first example. That's like the guide, which is the love, the offering that we give back to God, because that's something we have to learn to do. We ain't gonna give back something that we don't intend, just like God don't give us anything that he don't intend us to have. And see, we have to relate to it like that, because that's what I can say help us to relate within ourselves and how the Holy Spirit is guiding us, because that's what takes us away from things that we physically struggle with, that we mentally struggle with, and that we socially struggle with.
Yeah, good.
I think it's
Ted, I'll get you, Greg. Good.
So I just want to make sure we're saying what's the difference from like the first two and the second one.
Yeah,
So, what I get out of it is the goal is to be Christ-like. If we're not Christ-like, then we won't inherit the kingdom of Christ and God. That's just the two that I see.
yeah. Okay, great. Good.
WWE, the old WWE.
Okay.
Randy Savage,
Oh,
Hogan, says a lot
Yeah.
of things in general, but one thing is sacrifice. We gotta be able to offer up sacrifices.
yeah.
And you do all those things there, you negate the sacrifices.
Right. Yeah.
I think when you look at it together, as everyone stated, I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, I think you think about it from the standpoint of, will a man rob God? Look at what God did, man, and then look what man's going to do in response back to obviously God, oh man, he himself.
Yeah.
That's where you're going. It's obviously there, and because when you look at verse 2, it says to walk in love, and as Christ has loved us and given himself for us. And then who's he doing that to? It says to God. Okay? And then verse 3 comes in. Now, sexual morality or fornication there. And all uncleanness or covetousness, let not even be named among you as sitting for the saints, nor filthiness, nor talking, porch testing, is not fitting. So all those things. Now, this is where it's hidden. Because there are some people that love those things. That love to do those things that were mentioned in verse 2 and 3. And people like who love to say the word that gets everyone triggered, or they love to just cuss. All they can say is cuss. I can understand you said so many words in the middle of it. And we know some people are just addicted to sex and things. So they love all that stuff. I understand. But what he's saying, if you use the contrast to the but there, verse 3 says but. So all those things it would seem to be against walking in love for God. Right?
Yeah, also, stay with it.
What you got, man? Yeah, that's it.
Also, when you look at, like what verse 6 says, let no one deceive you. See, that word is a good example to us, because it gives us a springboard to look at on how, if we're not careful for what we not yet, we can be deceived.
Yeah.
Because it says, let no one deceive you. And then, sure, in this, he stated with empty words. That's pretty powerful right there. Empty words.
Yeah.
For because of these things, and then he really emphasized that the wrath of God comes upon you.
Yeah.
Upon the sons of disobedience. In other words, with that, letting us know, we can easily deceive ourselves and become disobedient if we're gotta be careful to what we even listen to
Sure.
or digest,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
That's the country that comes, okay, like what you said, when we go back to verse 1, 2, and I'm not trying to teach families they can walk in love. We walk every day.
Yeah.
Walk in love. Give, if, you know, as Christ loved us, you know, for us to be the same example and exemplify the same type of love that Christ gave us. That's something we don't get, we have to develop that.
true. True. That's right. The one is spiritual, one is physical. One physical is not, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what it takes us in situations to learn how to slow ourselves down, learn how to listen, learn how to forgive when we know we need to,
Yeah.
learn how to repent when we know we need to. Because that's where a lot of problems come in with situations. People won't admit or won't accept where they're wrong.
True.
And then they don't realize that's what caused the problem.
Yeah.
That lack of trust that comes into the situation once it gets outside of their own comfort zone where it's out.
Yeah. Yeah. And all these things you mentioned are very comforting things. Well, I say all about being covetous, but most of them are pretty comforting though. You know, like yourself, it's all short term type. Yeah. What you got?
We on verse 6.
We are in fact verse 3, but we're up now read 7. So amen to
You get to
English.
6, I've got it.
Well, you want on 6? Go ahead, I'll use 10. Go ahead.
Well, like the course said, this whole thing is a contrast between evil and good. And so we have two types of people. We have the sons of disobedience and the sons of obedience.
Okay.
Sons of disobedience are haters of God. The sons of obedience are lovers of God.
True. True. Good point.
Yes, that's on verse 3 when it states that let it not be named among you.
Yeah.
To me, that looks like an identity. You know,
Yes.
Let's not these things identify you. So even to the outside world, if people are saying what that church is about, they do this, this, and this. I know when I've talked to people that have been to certain churches, and I'm not talking about Church of Christ, because I haven't heard that about Church of Christ anymore. But there were ongoing relationships between the leadership and members, and nobody was doing anything about it. So that church had a name that was, you know, they were identified as a church that was,
Tolerant.
yeah, fornication.
Oh,
Their renegade. Identity. That was part of their identity.
yeah.
I said, wow.
Was it open? Everyone knew about it, and they feel really.
The preacher was involved, the elders were involved. Again, it was not the Church of Christ, it was
No.
the Baptist church, you know, but still. That's what part of their identity. That's what people do go on. I'm like, wow. And that's what it's talking about here. Don't let people identify you with these things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's something that happened in the church. I've known my guys that had affairs and stuff, but it's always very forgiving.
Right.
It's never this open, you know, counter.
But being addressed, you know, but if you're not addressing it, now you're identifying it, well, they let you do what you want there.
Yeah, that's great. I'm surprised, that's great.
That's the world.
Yeah, no, that's an issue. Yeah,
We got the first one in.
go ahead, man. We can leave it for you.
I just had a question on the first one.
Okay,
I had a problem with it.
okay,
With a friend that used to email me all the time. And, I got reading the scripture that the one that says, neither filthiness, nor foolish talk, nor jesting. And jesting, you know, it sounds like an easy word. Jesting, you see in old English, they had clowns, jesters, before the king.
yeah,
But
Yeah, I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Of course, Jesse would go into the,
ugly jokes, is that what you're saying?
That's basically kind of what it is when somebody ridiculing someone.
yeah, yeah,
They ridicule someone.
And
about that being the phrase, that is a phrase, just as
extra biblical terms,
terms go, that was very popular in some of the world of philosophy. That's how they would say, how you identify an idiot is by coarse jesting. And I think, and Paul would have read a lot of those guys, and heard a lot of those guys. So I mean, some phrase kind of snuck in there, of course, but I think he used the same mentality, probably. You know, this kind of thing is identifying someone who's not going to love God or people. Everything's above a joke. And that's always a problem. It's a dehumanizing, acid bad, and all kind of stuff. But yeah.
The area where Rick and I came from, we had coarse jesting in the schools, particularly in high school, and we called it playing the dozen. What you were doing, playing the dozen.
Okay.
And what you were doing was you were making a joke about a person's mother.
Okay.
A very derogatory joke.
Okay.
Sometimes guys got to fight over it because, but that was really coarse jesting.
Yeah.
And one thing that was a joke, a jest, well, you know, that's okay.
Yeah.
Coarse jesting is when you're really being derogatory, or offensive, you know.
Right.
And yeah, that was very common before the career back in the day. And guys fought a lot over that.
Yeah, they just want to learn us something, Rob. That's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is, but when you kind of look at the lesson with the scripture, it is like, well, that's a good power. It gives us a springboard there, where it says, would a out of place, but instead let there be thanksgiving. Now, see, that's another contrast to that one verse where it's showing, it's saying, look, you don't let people just do it that way. You can still have, you know, a better result just by the way you think yourself,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Because that's what it says right here, which are out of place. Everybody have a level of knowledge to right from wrong. And everybody is not going to apply the same way,
Yeah.
depending on the circumstances, the condition that may come up with whatever's going on in the situation. And then, just like what we talk about, that's something I had to train my nephew to concerning some situations he was going through school with some bullying and stuff. I had to give it back to Christ like, bro, learn to walk away, don't even address it. Because it causes you worse consequences than if you just left it alone and let them be able to do what they're doing.
Yeah. 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 I'm a fan of give them enough rope, let them do it themselves.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's not easy to do something.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. If you want to.
crazy on your own
time. I'll give you enough leeway, you can do it yourself.
We're gonna see you for who
You are. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's had a lot of patience, or a lot of spit to do that. Say something, where is it? Okay. Other than that's a conflict, so it's kind of a wild way. Oh. So verse 5, we've already hit around here. For this you know, that no fornicator or unclean person or covetous man who is an idolater has any inheritance in the kingdom of God. Now, that's an interesting verse, because you read other verses, like 1 Corinthians 5, verse 11. It says, and such were some of you. Does that mean that these are the exceptions to the rule, depending on the verse?
Oh, that's it.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, all sin and falling short.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, when you think about
the phrase from 1 Corinthians 5, verse 11 says that in subsequent use, he's saying that in the past tense, that you were that person. That's how you used to be. But, and so of course, I think the church being made up of imperfect. I think we're trying to get across here. I think right here he's dealing more with the Ephesians group as being in kind of the same boat, you know, and you used to be around others, or you yourself were like this. But that was wrong. This is why. And it's all in the context of the love of God, love of Christ, and the kingdom. So, I'm trying to make sure that if you want to have your status inside of the kingdom now, but I mean inside of the world, you do that. If you are going to value your place in heaven, you don't do this. So, you know, it's kind of like people, I know several guys, and so do you probably, you've seen movies or whatever, where there are people that are in charge of recruiting others. I know you were in charge of the military, a little different, but I know a guy who is in charge of recruiting doctors for a hospital chain. That's what his job is. His job is to go out and recruit doctors. And all the doctors expect him, and the Christian, he's in the church, that's in Georgia. All the doctors expect him to go in and be the one to do the dirty joke, be the one to bring out, you know, the full spectrum of drinks and food, you know, go out there and party with him and show him a good time, make him comfortable with that hospital. He says no. And so my understanding is that some doctors have said no because he didn't go along with the worldly behavior that they wanted to practice. And so they weren't recruited because, you know, they didn't like what he saw. And so I think some people are kind of like that. You know, like when you're in a sort of situation, they expect you, if you want to win me over, you need to be as bad as I am. You know, if you're going to be my friend, you need to be as bad as I am, me to trust you. Well, right, I was saying, that's completely ridiculous. It's a little bit saying. You got to be as bad as somebody else that doesn't like you and trust you and respect God later on. No, it's not. He's saying that these people have no inheritance. There's no fornicator, no unbelievers, no coachman. No one has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. So, that's another interesting phrase because I will say, in other verses, like 1 Peter 1, 3, and 4, that we do have an inheritance waiting for us and reserving for us, is what it says. But right here, I think what he's trying to get across is you can't have that while you're still being sinful. There's a distinction between being sinful, living a sinful life and lifestyle, and being imperfect. We know someone can still sin and still be in the kingdom. They may need to repent, but they can still be in the kingdom. That's Acts 8:22. But, you know, where Peter will tell Simon the sorcerer there to repent and pray. Everybody was already Christian. He was baptized, and then he began to play around with magic again, try to figure out how the Spirit works, all kind of stuff. And he says, "You're wrong." He says, "May your riches die with you." Or repent and pray. But he didn't say go ahead and be baptized. He said, repent and pray. You're already. So he, you know, he was imperfect. Came out with a wrong mentality, but I think Paul here is trying to explain that. You know, the difference in living in that lifestyle, as I think we're trying to get across here, that someone who lives there is not going to just say, well, I'm a good moral person, therefore I'm allowed to go to the kingdom. He's saying you can't do that stuff. You can't play the moral game with God. Okay? You can't do that. So I think he's trying to get across the moral game here. What you got?
Well, to that verse, if you look at it, it really was like a warning.
It is.
you know, for, because they say, for you may be sure of this, that everyone who is sexually immoral or impure or who would covet, that is an adulterer, has no inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. That's a warning. And that really is a warning. And then he gives us the understanding in the next verse that no one deceive you with empty words. And he gives you the results of what can happen. But because of these things, the wrath of God comes upon the son of disobedience. That is like you got the two different contracts.
Yeah,
Obedience, disobedience. Obedience, disobedience. And see, each of us individually have a choice. We can decide to be obedient or disobedient.
correct. Yeah. And this son's and disobedience has already mentioned once before in Ephesians, and it's in chapter 2.
Yeah.
And when he goes there, verses 1 and 2 of Ephesians 2, it says, and you he made alive, who were dead in trespasses and sins, in which ye once walked or lived, according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit who now works in the sons of disobedience, among whom, verse 3, 2, among whom also we all once conducted ourselves in the lust of the flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, just as the others.
That's it.
And the word nature, there, verse 3, deals with continuous habit that becomes nature. Not dealing with that they were born with it. It's dealing with that continuous habit. Okay, so when you look at 5 verse 6 there, as Horace mentioned, you know, and I'm going to see you with empty words because of these things, and wrap it up and upon the sons of the speech. Well, that's already on the same one mentioned verses 3, 4, and 5. He's now identifying our verses the other 4. Here they are again, I think more fleshed out what he's done. Okay? And therefore, when you do those guys, verse 7, do not be partakers with them. What does that mean? So that mean that can't be your friends?
I got another word that says, do not become partners with him.
Right.
So
Right.
you live, you becoming a part of that group.
Yeah.
Do not become partners with him.
Right. Another verse in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 33
Yes, sir.
says, "But no evil companionships corrupt
Good man.
good man's good works." All right. So when you look at this being partakers or partners with them, another verse there would be John 18, where Christ says that, and John 17 as well, says very similar things. I pray that you can be in the world, but not of the world. So we have to have certain connections around life with those who are not going to be, of course, Christians or godly people. But that does not mean that I have to go down to the level. And so I think we just did that right here. Don't go down to, I mean, it's okay to have dealings with them, but don't go down to their level. You maintain the high ground, if you will. The high ground is because of your affections and because of your mentality, your lifestyle, everything is going back to heaven. That's Colossians 3, 1 and 2. That your affectional thing, love, where God is. So, we try to get all that lined up. John said, do not be a partaker with them. Okay, to be neighbor. Okay, I think to have him as a friend, but do not go down to the level. don't be a partaker or partner in that good thing. And why is that? Verse 8. For you were once darkness. That's an interesting phrase there. You ever been called darkness? You were once darkness. Okay. But now you are light. Okay. Light in the Lord. Therefore walk as children of light. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness, righteousness, and truth, finding out what is acceptable to the Lord, and having no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. For it is shameful even to speak of those things which are done by them in secret. But all things that are exposed are made manifest by the light, for whatever makes manifest is light. Therefore, he says, awake, you who sleep, arise from the dead, and Christ will give you light. Okay, so what is verses 8 through 14 talking about?
Yeah, that's just 1 John 2:16.
Okay.
For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, the pride of life, not of the Father, but of the world.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good one. 1 John 2:16. James 1:14 goes into that as well. Okay. All right, what else do we see? And Ephesians 5:8 through 14.
It says,
Proving.
and it requires an action from us, proving what is acceptable to the Lord.
Oh, you're finding out. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Proving, testing.
That's a constant thing we have to do.
Yeah. 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 I think that's Hebrews 12, 30 rather. 1 and 2, it says, pursue holiness. Constantly pursuing. The effort there. Okay. What else do we see? Wait.
The part is talking about exposing.
Yeah.
Now you gotta really be strong and be willing to do that.
Yeah.
Because there's gonna be some fallout, some flack, it's gonna be some, And so if you get involved with them, then you have to expose them.
Right.
That's, that gets real bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's better for us to even, like we talked about earlier, if certain people have a certain reputation that we know of, we need to avoid it.
Yes.
Because if you get involved with them, just telling us here, we gotta expose it.
Yeah.
Stay out of that mess. What is it? Stay out of that mess.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think Jesus ever exposed anybody?
Woman at the well.
Hmm?
Woman at the well.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's that. And you got 5 husbands. What are you doing now, the man in town again? Yeah. What you got?
And then when he was turning over those tables,
Yeah.
Money straight.
Yeah. The money change. Yeah. Turn my father up to a house of thieves. Yeah. John 7, verse 7. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify, Christ says, I testify of it that its works are evil. Well, that's what's going on there. Christ is going and saying, everything y'all are doing is wrong. The world is wrong. Legalistic religion and all these other things, it's all self-righteousness and holy art thou behavior, all that stuff is wrong. So, what's the response? He says the world will hate you. Yeah. That's John 1 as well. John 1 is all of that. About the light, coming about darkness. What you got, Crystal?
I think it's also talking about being, if you're just silent, then it gives the vision or assumption that you approve
True.
with what they have going on. So the brother was saying about when he was in a different church and they was doing some stuff with young teenagers. They have a lot of that going on too.
Okay.
But it was open. It was more something that was done in silence.
Mhm.
So it was only, a few people knew here, a few people knew there, but at the same time, because everyone was silent about it, the people that did know, it was kind of like, you're proving what's going on because you ain't saying it.
Sure.
Some people feel like if they do say something, then it's shameful. Because why are you in their business? Why are you, casting judgment? God is the only judger. And now we're throwing Bible into different contexts. That has nothing to do with fornication and all these different things. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a way for you to expose people without being direct.
Sure.
And just saying, hey, I don't approve of this because I believe in this.
Right.
And I think when we are with, our fellow Christians, because I feel like this is more based on fellow Christians. I don't know if it's warranted for just an unbeliever or both. That's what I'm trying to figure out while
Okay.
we're doing this lesson.
Yeah.
But I feel like if it is a follower of Christ and you see them participating in these things, you can kind of like revert back to the, hey, I don't agree with this because we're supposed to believe in this, rather than, hey, you're sleeping with so-and-so, you're doing this, aren't you married? Then it sounds more judgmental than it's just giving the facts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, while you're bringing it up, use the phrase, I don't know what phrase it was, but the phrase that triggered me for a minute. Whenever I was in Arkansas preaching, I used to go to a place called Wynn, go to Walmart down the road, be out the restaurants and stuff. You ever heard that in Arkansas? You want to eat? You want to go mullet hunts, you go to Wynn or Walmart. Let's go have a mullet hunt. Anyway, and somehow I came across a bulletin for the Catholic Church from Wynn, Arkansas. In the back of the Walmart. Well, I'll read that. And it made a comment, I can't remember what it's called. But some woman is a wife of somebody in church there. They would alternate. And it's a bulletin. And what it was that the day during that month that the priest was to have business with somebody, she's on call. And that was a thing every 12 months. Every month a new person. And that was her duty to the church. Isn't that crazy? Give me what it's called. I thought that was so wide. That's in the bulletin. This is your month. This is mine. Please read that. Good night. What is that about? That's open there. Man, give me what was just called. Now, it's an essential thing to do. I've heard that in my life. Good find, good say what it was.
Some people in her church that probably disagreed. She was like, clearly, but they probably just kept silent. So it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna keep on throwing this on the bulletin.
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? It's weird to think about. Yeah. Because the whole thing about with them, that's getting off a little bit, is that, because you would think, they're all hopefully fornicating. We're going to do the bulletin. And it had a thing on maybe their website or somewhere, I read somewhere, that said that the priest was not bound to certain laws of God, and so he's immune from certain things like that. Lord, the Pope, whatever. That's crazy. That's a bit nuts. But anyway, that's a thought here. You mentioned some phrase that triggered me with that one. I hadn't thought that in years. Okay. What you got? Of course.
And it's good. Everybody, when you go over that, if you put all the contracts in front of, like you said, when you want to draw, but now in the Lord, not like in the Lord, walk in the children of light. They did like verse 9, for the fruit of the Spirit is in all Washington was rather even recruited him, but the thing which is done about them is he gets the same he would speak of. But see, just like what the sister was saying, most people who are in those lifestyles, they are in denial
Okay.
because they are trying to actually justify what they choose to do and how they choose to be.
Yeah.
And see, the
Yeah.
contrast here is just like what it said, it is a shame even to speak of. In other words, we can't even relate to the things that they may do with darkness because we're not even accustomed to even understanding how that lifestyle even
Right.
functions.
Yeah.
And see, that's what's serious about. We're not even understanding how that lifestyle even functions.
Mhm.
With that attitude.
Yeah.
Because we're normal, as we would say, on the outside looking in, and we can't even relate to their thought process on how they even justify what they doing.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's true.
You know,
What you got, man?
I need some help.
Okay. On the dashes?
This expose,
Okay.
right? The center reference has another word, which is called reprove. Is that a verbal rebuke? You reprove someone?
I probably think so. So my understanding of approve though is the idea of correction. I'm going to reprove why you shouldn't be doing this. And so I have to verbalize that. What do you think?
Well,
I don't think going around and gossiping about it's going to make it any better. I think that's the actual
no,
well communication.
if you go to these people and you have people to stand and exposing.
Yeah.
Woo!
You got a friend?
Huh?
You got a friend? You want to close in church?
No, I didn't. Well, it could be exposed or reproved, not in the church. Okay, but this is talking about people in the church, expose them, or is it talking about the reprobate?
I think it's dealing with the non-Christian who is practicing on the world. I think that's how I will look at it. Because of the words darkness and sin and all those things that are actually non-Christian.
Yeah.
That's how I will look at that. So I think it's kind of like this activist and stuff. Yeah, you can go out there and do stuff and say things. It's going to do it. Obviously, your time in the world, not about the same thing as today. We can really go out and do that kind of stuff.
Well, I think we need to work a little harder on getting the full armor.
Yeah, that's why I said it. Yeah.
Because, and I'm talking about you better take some self-defense.
Yeah, I know.
Something for self-defense.
Yeah. Well, all right. We'll stop being in class today. Appreciate the comments. And we will have worship here in a few minutes. Thank you very much. Yes, Rita.